Hello, dear story lovers. At the amount of 1,000 subscribers, I will post a huge series of special stories for you. Subscribe now. The twin sons of Eridani III cast their long, golden rays across the bustling city of Thalassa, painting its shimmering spires in hues of crimson and gold. The city was a marvel of interstellar engineering, a testament to humanity's rapid adaptation to the Galactic Federation's advanced technologies. But beneath the glittering surface, a palpable tension hung in the air. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispering of an edict from the Galactic Council, a summons for a human girl accused of crimes so grave that even the Council's cold impartiality had turned to vengeance. Elara stood on the city's skyway, her gaze fixed on the approaching Council transport. At 19, she was an anomaly among her kind, possessing a rare gift, the ability to perceive the intricate, telepathic patterns of alien consciousness. Her abilities had been lauded as miraculous when humanity first entered the Federation, but now they were her curse. Accused of infiltrating the neural web of the Center, an insectoid race revered for their collective intelligence, Elara's talents were painted as espionage, a direct threat to the fragile trust between humans and the Federation. The sleek, Obsidian Council transport descended in silence, its gravity engines humming faintly as it hovered inches above the ground. A team of Praetor Guards gleaming, silver-plated enforcers of the Council's will stepped forward, their presence commanding immediate compliance. Without resistance, Elara allowed herself to be escorted aboard, her defiance masked by a calm exterior. She knew better than to protest. Humanity's position in the Federation was tenuous, and any sign of dissent could jeopardize their fragile foothold. The journey to Zephyria, the Federation's floating capital, was unnervingly swift. Suspended in the orbit of a dying star, Zephyria was a labyrinth of crystalline towers and organic architecture, its design alien and incomprehensible to human sensibilities. The transport docked at the Council's citadel, a massive structure that seemed to pulse with its own eerie energy. Elara was led through endless corridors, each more imposing than the last, until she reached the Council chamber. The chamber was vast, its walls adorned with shifting holograms of galactic maps and arcane symbols. The Council members sat upon raised platforms, their forms cloaked in shadow. Their voices echoed as a collective in a way that seemed to bypass the ears entirely, resonating directly in Elara's mind. Elara of Earth, the voice declared, its tone devoid of emotion. You stand accused of breaching the neural sanctum of the Center Collective. The evidence against you is incontrovertible. Elara stepped forward, her voice steady but firm. I did no such thing. My abilities allow me to interpret neural patterns, not to invade or harm. If I uncovered anything, it was by chance, not intent. A murmur of discontent rippled through the chamber. One of the Council members, a reptilian figure with glistening emerald scales, hissed in apparent disdain. Ignorance does not absolve you. The Center are sacred to this Federation. Your actions are a threat to our unity. Another member, a translucent being of light and energy, spoke. The punishment must reflect the gravity of the offense. The Cerulean Dragon will enforce the ancient rites. The mention of the Cerulean Dragon sent a shiver down Elara's spine. Stories of the dragon were told across the galaxy. A creature of immense size and power, it was both a symbol of justice and a harbinger of death. The ancient rites demanded its involvement in cases of high treason, a ceremonial execution that would solidify the Council's dominance. Elara's heart pounded, but she refused to cower. If I'm to be judged by this dragon, then so be it. But know this, the truth will not stay buried, and neither will I. The Council ignored her words, their decision final. The execution will take place at dawn, the collective voice decreed. You are dismissed. As the guards led Elara away, she felt a flicker of something unexpected, a faint, telepathic brush against her mind. It was brief but distinct, a sensation akin to being observed. Whether it came from the Council, the dragon, or some other force, she couldn't tell. But in that moment, she knew her fate was about to intersect with something far greater than herself. Outside the chamber, The city of Zephyria glowed like a beacon in the void. Elara stared out at its alien beauty, her resolve hardening. If this was to be her end, she would face it not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. The day of execution dawned beneath the eerie light of Zephyria's dying star. The Citadel's execution grounds were a massive amphitheater, carved into the crystalline heart of the floating city. The seats overflowed with a multitude of alien dignitaries, curious spectators, and reporters eager to document what promised to be a spectacle of both cruelty and ceremony. Above them, the cerulean dragon's colossal form hovered in a massive containment field, its shimmering scales reflecting the light of the star in dazzling patterns. Elara, shackled in restraints that pulsed with suppressive energy, was escorted into the arena by praetor guards. Her execution garments a stark white robe with intricate alien symbols stitched in silver seemed grotesquely ceremonial, a mockery of dignity. She walked with her head high, refusing to let fear dominate her final moments. The crowd was eerily silent, save for the murmurs of the council, who occupied an elevated dais overlooking the arena. As Elara was positioned at the center of the amphitheater, the containment field around the cerulean dragon dissipated, and the beast descended with an otherworldly grace. Its sheer size was overwhelming, larger than the arena itself, with wings that shimmered like liquid starlight. Its eyes, luminous pools of shifting colors, locked onto Elara. Despite the overwhelming pressure of its presence, she felt no hostility from the creature, only an unsettling sense of connection. The council's voice resonated across the arena, amplified by the psychic harmonics of the chamber. Elara of Earth, for crimes against the center and the sanctity of the Galactic Federation, you are hereby condemned to death. Your essence shall serve as an offering to the cerulean dragon, keeper of our unity. The crowd erupted into a mixture of cheers and jeers as the ceremony commenced. A ceremonial blade, forged from the crystalline veins of Zephyria itself, was brought forth by the executioner. Elara knelt as instructed, her heart pounding in her chest. She cast one last glance at the dragon, her thoughts a chaotic mix of defiance, fear, and an inexplicable sense of calm. The executioner raised the blade high, and in a single swift motion, it fell. Elara's head separated from her body, and the amphitheater erupted in applause and gasps of awe. Her severed head, surrounded by a faint aura of shimmering energy, was carefully placed on an obsidian plinth in the arena's center. The cerulean dragon moved forward, its massive form casting a shadow over the entire gathering. It lowered its head, nostrils flaring as it examined the offering. And then, the surreal began. A ripple of energy surged from the dragon's body, enveloping Elara's severed head in a radiant cocoon of light. Gasps and cries of shock echoed through the crowd as the head began to levitate. The air vibrated with an otherworldly frequency, a sound that resonated within the minds of every being present. The radiant cocoon expanded, and Elara's head transformed, shedding its human form. In its place emerged a glowing, ethereal visage that seemed to exist on a higher plane of reality. The dragon let out a roar that shook the amphitheater, not of rage, but of reverence. It bowed its massive head before the glowing form, an action that left the council and spectators stunned. Elara's voice, or rather an amalgamation of voices, resonated through the arena, transcending language and species. You have been blinded by fear and manipulated by deceit, the ethereal form declared, its tone both commanding and sorrowful. The center's treachery runs deeper than you know, and my death was but a stepping stone in their greater plan. Images flooded the minds of those present, visions of the center orchestrating schemes to sow discord among the Federation, using Elara's unique abilities as a scapegoat to frame humanity. The truth was undeniable, etched into the minds of everyone in attendance. The council was struck silent, their collective presence faltering as they processed the revelations. The cerulean dragon, as if acting on instinct, emitted a stream of light from its maw, directing it toward Elara's remains. Her body and head reformed, the glowing ethereal visage merging back into flesh. She stood whole once more, her form radiant and her eyes alight with a power that was both terrifying and beautiful. The amphitheater fell into stunned silence. Elara's voice, now carrying the weight of both her humanity and something greater, rang out. This moment will be remembered not as the day of my death, but as the beginning of your reckoning. Truth cannot be silenced. The dragon roared once more, its cry shaking the foundations of the citadel. Elara turned to face the council, her gaze piercing through their shadowed forms. Your judgment has failed. The galaxy will not. And with that, the Surreal turned into something unstoppable. The amphitheater remained in a stunned hush as Elara stood, reborn in the radiant glow of her ethereal transformation. Her body and soul were no longer confined to the limits of human frailty. The energy coursing through her veins seemed to hum with the collective resonance of the galaxy itself. She turned to face the cerulean dragon, whose massive head hovered close, its shimmering eyes now filled with something akin to reverence. In that moment, they were no longer executioner and condemned, they were allies bound by a purpose yet to be fully understood. The council, still seated on their elevated dais, broke their silence. Their collective voice was fractured, uncertain. This is an anomaly. What has transpired here defies explanation. You are an abomination of life and energy, Elara. But Elara was no longer cowed by their authority. Her voice, amplified by the strange power within her, carried across the amphitheater. You fear what you do not understand. Yet the truth is clear, even if you refuse to see it. The Center have deceived you, twisting the fabric of your trust for their own gain. The dragon, as if to underscore her words, let out a deep, rumbling growl. The air shimmered with telepathic energy as the dragon transmitted its own perspective into the minds of everyone present. A vivid image emerged, a mental tapestry woven from fragmented memories and visions. It showed Center operatives meeting in shadowy enclaves, crafting false evidence of Elara's supposed crimes. Their goal was clear: to provoke humanity's fall from grace within the Federation and sow discord among its member species. The council murmured among themselves, their voices now fractured and defensive. If what you say is true, why would the Center risk such a bold act? Their position in the Federation is secure. Elara's glowing form stepped forward. Because they do not seek to maintain the Federation. They seek to dismantle it. Your unity is their obstacle. Divide and conquer, that has always been their method. The amphitheater erupted into chaos. Delegates from various species shouted accusations, denials, and questions. The council struggled to maintain order as their infallible authority was crumbling before their eyes. Yet the cerulean dragon's roar silenced the crowd once more, its immense telepathic voice echoing in every mind. The truth is laid bare. There is no denying it. The Center's treachery runs deep, but the Council's blindness has allowed this seed to grow. Their judgment nearly destroyed an innocent life and could have undone the Federation itself. Elara turned to the Council. Your governance has failed. You have been content to rely on ancient rituals and rigid laws, blind to the currents of change around you. It is time for a new vision, one where power is tempered by wisdom and truth. One of the council members, a crystalline entity whose form shimmered with a troubled light, leaned forward. And what would you propose, Elara of Earth? You, who were once condemned by this body, now claim the mantle of reform. I propose nothing less than accountability, Elara replied. You must not act as gods, but as servants of the galaxies you claim to protect. Open your chambers. Allow transparency. And recognize that unity is not enforced through fear, but cultivated through trust. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. The council was silent, their once unassailable authority now shaken. Slowly, the crystalline entity spoke again. Your words carry the weight of truth, but they also challenge the foundation of our rule. If what you say is to be believed, then proof must follow. Elara extended a hand, and the cerulean dragon lowered its head. A beam of shimmering light flowed between them, and a crystalline sphere formed in her palm. The sphere pulsed with life, projecting a detailed memory matrix gathered from her telepathic interactions and the dragon's vast network of knowledge. It displayed undeniable evidence of the center's treachery, their secret meetings, false transmissions, and manipulation of key council figures. The crystalline entity examined the sphere, its body dimming in contemplation. The evidence is irrefutable, it finally admitted. The center have betrayed the Federation. A ripple of shock swept through the crowd. Dignitaries murmured, and alliances shifted in real time. The Council, for all its power, was exposed as flawed, and their judgment had been called into question for the first time in centuries. The dragon's telepathic voice resonated again. The decision is clear. Reform or face collapse. The Federation will not survive another betrayal of this magnitude. The Council, now humbled, bowed their heads. We will deliberate on the reforms you propose, Alara. But know this, the path forward will not be easy. Alara stepped back, her glow softening but her resolve unyielding. Nothing worth saving ever is. But it starts here, with the truth. As the council retreated into their chambers, the amphitheater erupted into a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Alara, accompanied by the cerulean dragon, turned to the crowd. She knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the revelation of truth had set something in motion that could not be stopped. The galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of the revelations in the amphitheater sent ripples across the galaxy. News of Alara's miraculous survival, the cerulean dragon's defiance, and the center's treachery spread with the velocity of light, carried by the interconnected communication networks of the Galactic Federation. On every planet and every star system, debates raged about the future of the Federation and the necessity of reform. For Alara, however, the journey was just beginning. A new role the Council reconvened in private, the chamber now open to representatives from member species for the first time in recorded history. Alara stood before them once again, not as a defendant but as a voice for change. The cerulean dragon remained by her side, its massive form a constant reminder of the ancient traditions that were now being re-examined. We cannot rebuild trust overnight, Alara said, her voice steady. But we can start by dismantling the structures that allowed this betrayal to fester. Transparency is not weakness. It is the foundation of unity. The crystalline entity that had once questioned her now spoke with a tone of measured respect. You have shown us the consequences of our hubris, Alara of Earth. You speak for a vision that we must all aspire to. What do you propose as the first step? Alara took a deep breath, knowing the gravity of her words. Open the citadel. Let every species witness your deliberations. No more shadowed halls and secret judgments. And establish an independent body, drawn from all member species, to oversee the actions of the Council. The suggestion sparked murmurs among the gathered representatives. Some praised the idea as revolutionary, others balked at the notion of dismantling centuries of tradition. The Council debated for hours, and though they did not fully embrace every aspect of Alara's proposal, they agreed to begin the process of reform. The citadel would no longer be closed, and a transitional committee was formed to oversee the Federation's evolution. A beacon of hope with her formal role as a liaison ratified, Alara became a symbol of the Federation's rebirth. Together with the cerulean dragon, she traveled to worlds still reeling from the center's machinations. On these journeys, she witnessed both the beauty and fragility of the galaxy planets with skies painted in hues of ultraviolet, cities built on oceans of methane, and species whose forms defied comprehension. Yet, across the vastness of space, one truth remained universal: trust was hard-won and easily shattered. On the center homeworld, Alara addressed the Council of their fractured leadership. You thought you could tear this Federation apart for your own gain. But your betrayal has only forged stronger bonds among its members. Now, you must choose: will you be part of the healing, or will you face exile? The center, humbled and exposed, pledged to atone for their actions. Though suspicion lingered among the other species, Alara's insistence on reconciliation rather than retribution prevented a war that could have engulfed the galaxy. The Dragon's Legacy. The Cerulean dragon, once feared as a weapon of execution, was now revered as a symbol of wisdom and justice. On many planets, statues of the dragon were erected alongside images of Alara, depicting the pair as harbingers of a new era. The dragon's telepathic abilities became an invaluable tool in fostering dialogue and understanding among species with little in common. The dragon, however, had its own mysteries. Late one evening, as they rested on a remote moon orbiting a gas giant, Alara asked the dragon the question that had lingered in her mind since her resurrection. "Why did you save me?" The dragon's response was not in words, but in a cascade of visions, a tapestry of the galaxy's history, showing countless cycles of unity and division. In each cycle, individuals like Alara emerged beings who could bridge the gaps between species, who could rise above fear and prejudice. The dragon's role, it revealed, was not to enforce the council's will, but to guard these rare souls, ensuring they could fulfill their destinies. "You are part of a greater pattern," the dragon's voice echoed in her mind. A thread in the fabric of the galaxy story. The first steps. As the years passed, Alara and the dragon became fixtures in the Federation's landscape. Her work was far from easy. She faced resistance from entrenched powers, skepticism from those who had suffered, and the ever-present threat of new conspiracies. Yet, with each planet visited, each conflict mediated, and each alliance forged, she saw the galaxy inch closer to the unity she envisioned. On Earth, humanity's status in the Federation transformed from that of an outsider to a respected member. Inspired by Alara's journey, human leaders worked to strengthen their ties with alien species, fostering cultural exchanges and collaborative projects. One of Alara's proudest moments came when a center scientist and a human engineer stood together to unveil a new form of faster-than-light travel, a project made possible through unprecedented cooperation. A galaxy renewed. Years turned into decades, and Alara's name became legend. She often reflected on the surreal journey that had begun with her execution and ended with her as an emissary of hope. The galaxy was far from perfect, but it was alive with possibility. On the centennial anniversary of the Federation's reforms, Alara stood in the amphitheater where it had all begun. The arena, once a place of fear and death, was now a gathering spot for celebration and unity. Representatives from every species in the Federation filled the seats, their voices mingling in a harmonious cacophony. As she addressed the crowd, the Cerulean dragon perched behind her, its massive wings casting a protective shadow. "We are not bound by the mistakes of our past," Alara declared. "We are defined by how we rise above them. Let this day remind us that the galaxy's strength lies in its diversity, and its future belongs to those brave enough to dream." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers a symphony of hope. Above them, the dying star of Zephyria flickered one last time, as if to acknowledge the birth of a new era. And so, Alara and the Cerulean dragon continued their journey, guardians of a galaxy that, for all its imperfections, had chosen to strive for something greater.